All right, so the next thing I need to do is I need to work on the exposure. The overall exposure seems to be pretty good, but if we take a look at our histogram, we can see that we have some stuff climbing up the walls there, and we have some stuff climbing the walls here. That means stuff is banging up against there, and I probably have some highlight clipping and some shadow clipping. So what I can do is I can click on this guy here, and this is my highlight clipping indicator there, and you can see the red is showing up here where I've got blown out highlights. Now if I turn that off, I'm going to see that it's not necessarily blown out and gone pure white. So that means that at least one of the channels, this indicator there means that at least one of the three channels has blown out information. Even if two of the three channels have blown out information, as long as that third channel still has information that can be displayed, we can possibly get away with that. Same thing over here, I have shadow clipping. If I click on this, we can start seeing in the extreme shadows that I've got some clipping going on. What I might want to do is deal with these two guys separately. What I have to do is I have to ask myself, I'm just going to turn that off for a second because it can be a little bit distracting. Do I want to increase my exposure? Notice that my histogram here is going to push itself off to the edge if I start to brighten things up. Notice now, not only do I have that reddish magenta spike going on there, but I also have a white spike. The white spike means that I have all three channels clipped, and that's obviously too much. If I come over here and do something like this, I've got some colors clipping, not 100% of everything else, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce this down and possibly go this way. If I bring this down to that 0 point, I still have something going on up there. So maybe what I need to do is play with my highlights, play with my whites, as opposed to playing with the overall exposure of my image. So I can come down here and I can play with my highlights, and if I do this, you can see I'm pushing my histogram, pushing it all the way over this way. So I may want to back off on some of that stuff, or may realize that with this particular image, having one channel anyways, clipping is not such a bad thing. Then I can play with my shadows and pull them back, so I can say, okay, my shadows are a little bit too dark. What if I was to move this way? See how my histogram up here is moving this direction when I move my shadows this way. You have to be careful that if you open up your shadows too much, you're going to introduce flat stuff into your image. So we have to be careful which one of these guys we move. What if I take my blacks? And if I lighten my blacks, now you can see my histogram has come away from there, and it's probably come away too far. I'm setting them all back to 0 because now I just need to reevaluate and see how I can approach. I like the idea of being able to see where my shadows are clipping or where my highlights are clipping. I'm just not a fan of using those guys. I use something else, and I'll show you that in the next movie.